Thorny, as we venture into the R&R, two truths are consistent. We love our dear Montana state, and we love great beer. And you know who else feels the same? Jeremiah Johnson Brewing. Brewed in the heart of Montana in downtown Great Falls, Jeremiah Johnson takes Montana's finest ingredients to craft some of Montana's favorite beers. And now, Jeremiah Johnson's second tap room is open in downtown Coeur d'Alene. Their Citra IPA is probably one of my favorites. But we all know, Thorny, you're not the hop lover I am. You're more of a mountain man Scotch ale.
Well, Foley, I'm certainly not a mountain man, but you are right. I do love their Mountain Man Scotch Ale. But come game day, you and I are both cracking their golden Bobcat Pale Ale. So when you're looking for a quality craft beer brewed with Montana roots, a relaxing tap room, or just a six-pack to take to your favorite Bobcat tailgate, Jeremiah Johnson delivers. Make your next beer a Jeremiah Johnson, and as always, go Cats.
And I think this program is poised for greatness. It is poised for greatness. Great leadership in athletics and on the university side, a loaded roster, a great group of young men. I'm very hopeful that they will retain our staff and keep that intact, because I think that continuity is a huge part of the success here. And it's time for those guys to roll.
Welcome, everybody, to the R&R Catcast, a fan-based podcast focusing on Montana State athletics. We're two dudes named Ryan from the state of Washington talking about our dear Montana State. We hope you enjoy. Welcome back, Bobcat fans. Thanks for joining us. We are the Ryans of the R&R Catcast, the Montana State affiliate of the Big Sky Podcast Network. We're happy to be brought to you by Jeremiah Johnson Brewing, brewed in the heart of Montana in downtown Great Falls with a second tap room in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. They are now canning their hazy IPA. It's in grocery stores out there right now, and it's juicy. It's awesome beer, so go look for it. Thorny, we have today the R&R Sadcast.
Wah, wah. It really is. Like my emotions have been all over the place, but overall, yeah, I'm just sad.
Well, if you don't know what we're talking about, we have to do an emergency podcast because our beloved head coach, Jeff Choate, is taking a job at Texas Longhorns as the co-defensive coordinator, as well as the coach for the inside linebackers.
Sidebar, big time program. They have a coach for inside linebackers. That means they also have a coach for outside linebackers.
Yeah.
And free safeties and strong safeties and boundary corners. Anyway, tangent. Yeah, because we're just talking right now to mask our pain, really.
Yes, we are anywhere on the grieving process. You just throw a dart. We're there all at the same time. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere, all at the same time. So it's been a hard day. It's been a hard weekend, and I guess we're here to talk about it for a little bit of catharsis for both you and I. But yeah, so we're gonna try to keep on track. We do have an outline for the show,
which was hard enough to come up with.
Yeah, we will get into what we're drinking here in a moment. But when we get into the Jeff Choate news, we're going to talk about our initial reaction, just as fans. And then after we learn the reasons why, we're going to give you a reaction to the why. From there, we will talk about Jeff Choate's legacy. And finally, we're going to look kind of like going forward, what's next. I think we have a good story at the very end, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, who knows where this is going to take us, but I mean, that's the best we can do is try and like put into segments the parts we want to talk about instead of just rambling about Jeff Choate the entire time. So we're going to give it a whirl. But yeah, you're mentioning the emotions running all over the place. Can you imagine if we had tried to do this last night? I don't know about you. I feel a lot different about it today than I did last night, and we'll certainly get into that. But that would have been an interesting podcast last night. Probably would have gone right into the recycle bin on my computer.
Yeah, we were pretty upset last night, so I'm glad we didn't. We did gain some perspective today, and we were fortunate enough our friend of the podcast and friend in general, the sports information director, Bill Lamberty, was kind enough to give us the Zoom conference that was held today with the reporters and media members, John Miller, Sean Rainey, Alex Eshelman, Colton Poole, Coulter Nuanez, Craig Haley, and maybe one more person, but we have that sound. And so we will be playing sound clips from the questions asked by those media members. And we will do our best to give credit to them when we play those clips.
Yeah, and we'll try our best to make this a smooth transition, but not something we do a lot of, playing clips here, so just bear with us on that one as well.
All right, before we get into the sad news, let's get into the good news. What are we drinking tonight, Thorny?
So those of you who have listened to this show for a while know that sometime during the last season the Bobcats played football, so now 2019, I think it was after the North Dakota game, I bought a beer. I believe what started it was called the Golden Grit by the Bale Breaker. It's Bale Breaker's a brewery, right?
Yes.
So, which I haven't found since, which is just, I'm distraught about this, but I bought it because of the name. It was like an IPA. I don't buy IPAs. If anyone listens to the show also knows that, but I bought it because of the name, and I kept doing that for the rest of the year, kind of superstitious thing, and we kept winning. What are you going to say? So it's been since then where I've actually gone beer shopping to buy a beer that the name encapsulates what I'm either feeling or a mood I want to set, a tone I want to set for the Bobcats, whatever. So tonight, I found myself a beer simply called Dang. It is the Dang Citra IPA from Hellbent over here in Seattle. I imagine they mean dang in a good way, but dang can be interpreted any way I want to, like dang or dang, however I want. I'm going to take it the sad way. So that's what I'm drinking. It is 60 IBUs, 6.6% alcohol. I might actually not hate Citra IPAs fully. This is like the second one I've had where I'm like, you know what? Okay. So there you go. I bought a Citra IPA I don't hate, and also dang.
Well, Citra hops is my favorite hops. I always look forward on the hop profile when I'm buying beer. And so good choice, man. I've never seen that one in the stores, but sounds good to me.
Funny note is the labels are very slipshod. There's multiple ones that have like the logo facing all different directions. That's pretty funny. We usually talk about labels too sometimes, and that was the only thing of note on this label is how poorly they were put on there.
Well, I had to make an emergency run to the grocery store to get mine because I knew this was coming up today. I got what is called the Space Needle IPA from Pike Brewing right there in Seattle, Washington. It has Cascade, Centennial, and Citra hops. It has 6%, 59 IBU. So I guess you and I, for once, are probably drinking a very similar beer.
Mine's more bitter than yours. That might actually be a record, at least according to the IBUs.
It is a beautiful can, and it does have a blue and gold color scheme to it. So it caught my eye right away. And, here it is in the coolie, the golden coolie. It's tasting pretty good.
All right. Well, now that we've had a beer in our system, talking about it anyway, what are we going to talk about next?
Well, let's just get right into the sadness, man. Let's just jump into the dark hole that is Jeff Choate leaving. And
the dark abyss. Oh.
And in full disclosure, like this is a fan-based podcast, and we are happy to talk to you with our fans, Linz. I mean, we are afforded some luxuries here and there with some news, and we're always going to give you that news if we can. But for the most part, Ryan and I, we're just two dads who live in Washington, separated from the program, and we just comb the internet, Twitter, and we have friends who talk to us about it. So this all came to us, last night at Friday night?
Yeah, so that the first we actually heard about this was both the Grizz guys from the Grizz Fan Pod in our giant Big Sky Podcast Network Twitter conversation started talking about they're hearing rumblings of some Big Sky coaches being gone. And it's going to be a major shakeup. And like, oh man, are they talking about Choate? And like, it was like less than 45 minutes after that. Like maybe it was Jason Walker. I don't remember who the first one in Montana to kind of confirm it was. And all of a sudden that was boom. So it happened in a span of, we heard the rumors at like 6 and then like 6:45, Choate's gone.
It was fast.
It was so fast. I think that's part of the sting of the whole thing too, is it was just like the rug just pulled out from under you.
So tell me, so our first part is the initial reaction. What happened to you, Ryan?
Well, I need to set the stage for this too, because the information had not become fully clear on what had happened yet. The initial reporting was that Jeff Choate was leaving Montana State to become the linebackers coach at Texas, which is a little different than co-defensive coordinator. In fact, maybe Jeff Choate was hired as a linebackers coach and he negotiated his way into co-defensive coordinator position to basically get himself a pay bump. I don't know. But the point is, at the time, it was just a position coach is what was announced. So my initial reaction was that I'm thinking Jeff Choate left University of Washington as a defensive line coach to come to Montana State. He works his way up to, the great season he had last year and all that stuff. And then he gets the interview with Boise State, becomes a finalist at Boise State, a place I would imagine is a kind of a dream head coaching job for him. So this is all within 7 days. Last Friday, it turns out he didn't get the job. Boise State hires Andy Avalos. And Jeff Choate comes out with his tweet that we read on the last podcast about being, committed to Montana State and all that stuff. And then like on Friday, yesterday, all of a sudden, like, hey, Texas, bye. It seemed very sudden. It seemed weird that he would leave to take a position group or a position coaching spot. So my initial reaction after absorbing all this information and thinking about the timeline of it, the tweet about being committed, and then all of a sudden he's gone, I was actually a little angry. I thought, like, why is he leaving here to take just a position group? He could have done that at any point. Pretty much during the last 2 or 3 years, for sure, he could have been a linebackers coach at UW. He could be a linebackers coach anywhere. Why is it now? Why is this happening right now? I'm also thinking, like, is something gone on behind the scenes? Is there a rift between Jeff Choate and Leon Costello? Is he just that fed up with not playing football? He's like, you know what? I'm taking the first bus out of here. All my initial reactions were honestly pretty negative, and a lot of it kind of stemmed from the position, the fact that he was just going to be a linebackers coach, a position coach, and the fact that he had just come off the Boise State thing, and the turnaround was so fast, it just seemed like he didn't get that job, so he just went like searching for the next possible job and got out. So my initial reactions were unfortunately all negative. I'll admit that right here. How about you, Foley? What were your first thoughts?
I was confused. I was really confused, and I felt like abandoned. It would be probably a good term I would put there. A couple people texted me with this, asking like, hey, what do you think on this? And I was just like, man, I have no clue, but I feel gut punched. And fortunately enough for me, when I feel that kind of thing, and like anger was definitely there. I had like a running group last night, and we hit the trail, and I was able to pound out some miles, and I felt a little bit better. I had a little bit more perspective after just, running mindlessly, thinking about it. I was still sad. I mean, I was moving into the sad stage at that moment. You'd mind your phone. You just continue to hit to, refresh on the Twitter, and so much stuff was coming out. It was going so fast. And then I just, at one point, Thorny, I just like closed my phone. I was like, it is what it is. Bobcat Nation was blowing up. Twitter had already blown up, and the text messages were coming in. So it was just overload. And so I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to sleep on this. I woke up this morning and I still felt really crappy. So that was my initial reaction.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I was also confused. Like, this is a confusing move to me. A lateral step down. I guess that's why my head went on to these conspiracy theories about he's unhappy with MSU. He's unhappy with the MSU administration. He's happy with Costello, Cruzado, whatever. Like, that just didn't make sense. It didn't compute to me why he would leave after last season, after getting so close to being a head coach at a very top tier G5 school, all this, and then he's just like, I'm gonna be linebacker coach at Texas now. Like, what? Texas? You don't even like all of his coaching careers, like all Pacific Northwest stuff too. So it didn't make sense from anything except for the fact that, I mean, it was obvious that the Pete Kwiatkowski connection was there. And did he have experience with Steve Sarkisian? I don't remember.
I couldn't piece that together today. I was looking for some sort
Wasn't
of
Sark at UW for a time? I don't know. I really don't know. I'm like, it's funny. Sidebar here. You and I are huge FCS fans. I really don't pay attention to FCS football at all. I know you do a little bit with the Cougs. I have no idea what goes on there. I'll watch the big time games. So I hear about coaches. I don't really know as much as I would about the head coach at like James Madison. I probably know more about that. But anyway, yeah, the whole thing just was confusing to me. So I was confused. I was angry. And I'm not sure how I felt when I went to bed on Friday, but it certainly wasn't good. But things certainly changed today. But yeah, talking about initial reactions now, they're all not great. So let's go ahead. I think it's a good time to play an audio clip here about, we're talking about the timing of it, the week, just 7 days after the Boise State announcement of Andy Avalos. We have a clip here from the press conference today about Jeff Choate kind of talking about how it went down and how it's a little bit unfortunate how it went down. So let's play that clip for you.
It was unfortunate the way it went down. That's one of the things that I regret, that, this wasn't something that I was aware of early in the week. This started to happen on Wednesday and didn't really get legs until yesterday. And I know sometimes it can come off as disingenuous. I just think, people have to understand in this day and age, I can't control the message. And that was unfortunate because I did have to kind of scramble last night and put together a Zoom meeting at 7:30. And then, after that, call my staff. And so that was unfortunate. And that was definitely regrettable. But I did get an opportunity to address the team today.
So that was Jeff Choate kind of talking about the timeline, how he couldn't control how it all happened, how I don't know if leak's the right word, but it got out before he had a chance to talk to anyone. I think he can't control that. And at some point during the press conference too, he talks about you can't control when opportunities come your way either. So it was just a big, huge rush for Jeff Choate too. Just a rush for everybody. So that was Jeff Choate's kind of take on how it all unfolded. What did you think of Jeff Choate's little speech there, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, well, I mean, he was pretty genuine. I mean, that's one thing I really love about Jeff Choate. Always have, is he's just going to be honest with you. He's going to tell you just straight up how he feels.
He's so candid.
Yeah, it's a gift of his. Honestly, it just reminded me, like, hearing his words right there. Just, I was picturing myself just like putting myself in that timeline. I was like, what was I doing at the time? I was scrolling through Twitter, and you would see like a couple players putting a couple things out there, and they're like, they felt hurt. They're like, he told who?
Surprised, yeah. Surprised, hurt. Like, they were like, you could tell the players had not found out yet.
Yeah, and it looked bad. It looked bad for MSU, and not and like to even go back even a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember when the Boise thing ended. It's all like a mess now. But he put out that tweet. Things are good here, or this is not. This is a place for me to be right now for many reasons. Unfinished business. And so you're like, was that just a lie?
Yeah, so,
right. You felt
kind of funny. Sidebar here, real quick. Remember how we had on the last podcast about the Boise State thing? I read into that tweet differently than you.
Yeah,
I don't know if I was correct on that or not, but it's interesting that I read that a little bit more negatively, and here we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so let's just put a cap on our initial reaction. We were both hurt, confused, angry, sad. We were feeling all the big feels last night for sure.
I do want to say it's interesting too, the dynamic here before we move on to the next segment here, is that I would have been super happy for Jeff Choate. Very sad for myself, but so happy for Jeff Choate if he got the Boise State job. And then when it was announced that he was going to Texas, I felt like none of that. Whole different dynamic between the big process. You hear he's interviewing, like just the transparent process throughout that thing. And then all of a sudden, like 45 minutes of news, like oh, here Jeff Choate might be gone and he's gone. Like I felt very differently about these situations.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, so a big question now that we're kind of setting the stage for is why did Jeff Choate take this job? Why did he leave MSU? And I think a good place to start on this is actually a quote from Jeff Choate, or from his press conference. And Ryan, you had just talked about this too, about him reiterating maybe, I'm happy to be at MSU. Was he unhappy with MSU? Let's play a quote right here.
And there were some other things that came up. This was not the only opportunity that fell in my lap over the last couple of weeks. But this was the one that was the right fit for me at this point in time. And there's a variety of reasons. And as I told our players, the why is kind of irrelevant, but I know that's what people are going to want to know. And what I can promise you is that the why is not about Montana State. It's not about, Leon not doing everything he could to help make this the best place for me and my family. Waded, she gave us so much tremendous support. And so this was not about Montana State not trying to do what they had to do to keep me here. That is not what this is about at all. And I know you don't know me well. Bill can probably speak to this. I'm a man of principle and conviction. And, if I'm going to talk to these young men about, hey, you've got to take a jump. If you want to be great, if you want to achieve your goals, if you want to live your dream, you're not going to get that by standing on the sidelines. So go put yourself out there and be your best self. And whatever happens, you can live with it. And I have, I've tried to live my life with no regrets. And I have absolutely no regrets about my time in Bozeman, Montana.
Bully, what are your thoughts?
When I heard him say that, it started to help me rationalize this whole thing and gave me a little bit of peace. I still feel sad, but I was like, I believe Jeff Choate. I've always believed everything he has said. I've never felt he has been disingenuous at any point. And so when I hear him say, it wasn't Leon's fault, it wasn't Waded's fault, it wasn't Montana's fault, or Montana State's fault, kind of assuaged the fears that I was building up in my head.
Same here. I don't know at what point I started feeling better about this. It was actually before this press conference, but after listening to this press conference, this completely changed my tune. And of course, obviously at this point, it's become known that he's the co-defensive coordinator, not just a linebackers coach, which is going to be a substantial pay upgrade. I've heard I think the figures floating around are anywhere from 600,000 to $1 million. I think is what I've been hearing, or maybe 600 to 800. Either way, that's borderline triple what he's making at MSU. But, when he said that, it kind of put some fears to ease that maybe there was some sort of rift in the athletic department. Because like you said, there's one thing, Jeff Choate may be a lot of things, whatever you want to say about Jeff Choate. I do not believe he is a liar. I do not believe he can lie, really. I think he just says it like it is. And I think maybe there'd be some sort of situation where he would say something by not saying something, but the fact that he said all this, I believe him, and it did put my mind to ease a little bit on any issues with Montana State and Jeff Choate. So I put out a hot take on Twitter, which I very much don't do. I said, hot take, Jeff Choate, one of the first bus out of Bozeman. After reviewing all this stuff, I do not agree with myself on that one. So that's why hot takes are stupid and I shouldn't ever do them.
Last night I was like, maybe you shouldn't put that out there right now.
I'm going to do one. Yeah. Bad choice.
So he didn't. We have a clip on talking about what was the hardest part for Jeff Choate. Do you have that ready, Ryan?
Yep, I got that coming up from here, and this is in response to a question from Coulter Nuanez of Nuanez Now, ESPN Missoula, and Skyline Sports. We have Coulter's question in here as well, but we like to credit as we go, so here we go.
Two more for me. One, what was the hardest part about this decision for you?
My family and our players. The hardest conversation that I had was with my son. That was the hardest conversation. My daughter was my biggest cheerleader. She's always up for an adventure. And then talking to our staff and players, because that was, I'm invested here. I never cheated anybody here, Cole. I never cheated anybody. I gave this place my best, and I gave those boys my best. And, when you put your whole self into something, it's going to hurt. And that's okay.
That clip is brutal, man.
Yeah. So about this time when we were watching this Zoom.
Yeah, we need to say that we're privy to the video on this. I don't know if did this make it onto the YouTube or not. Usually press conferences do, but the video on even makes this more gut wrenching.
Yeah, it was. Tears were in his eyes. Tears were in my eyes. I'll just be straight up honest. Uh, Jeff Choate pulls up some heartstrings for me. He feels like a father figure, and having my father just passed away this past year, I don't know. It's just a concoction that still is hard for me. So like hearing him talk about what was hard for him, talking to his son, man, the whole father dynamic is just hit hard for me right there. So, yeah, that was a tough one to listen to.
You can hear it in his voice. Like even if you don't watch the video, there's a couple times where his voice wavers there, and he also was spaced out in his talking, like because he was like collecting himself, trying to hold together. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of things you can say about Jeff Choate, a lot of things you can say about anybody, but he's very genuine and he cares. All right, he cares about the players, his players, number one. He cares about his coaches, number two, which he also considers like, people he's mentoring, like. He's like you said, he's like a father figure. He just cares about it so much. And I genuinely believe this was an extremely hard decision for Jeff Choate and a hard news to have to break to everybody, including his family.
Yeah. He had mentioned in that interview that he would have to actually leave the building, the Montana State football complex, in order to just gain clarity. He would have to go on a walk with his wife because it was overwhelming him. And, yeah, it's heavy. It's and when you listen to him and you see him talk about it, it just magnifies it.
All right, where do we want to move next? I don't have anything else to say on that. That's
well, we had mentioned lastly, one of the to kind of talk about him talking to the players and his regrets of them getting not being the first to know, essentially, or his staff not being the first to know. He mentioned that. We do have a clip from Colton Poole. Asked him a question about like how did the players take it? Why don't you play that clip?
You talked a little bit about it already, but I'm wondering if you could expand on the process of talking to the players about this and what their kind of reaction was.
Yeah, I'd say it was somber. And, for the most part, that's between us, that's between me and the boys. I think they understand, maybe not the why. I think the hardest thing was the timing, coming off the Boise thing. And then this happens. I think that was the hardest thing for people to understand. And there's just no way that you control timing of opportunities. That's impossible. And I think that they get what the opportunity is. I think the difficult thing for them was the kind of the timing and the why. And, I kind of told them that the why doesn't really matter, but let's talk about this. And so, yeah, it was a good conversation.
To me, Jeff Choate almost kind of one of the few times you hear Jeff Choate actually kind of have a hard time finding words. I don't know if it was just so like awful and awkward for him that he didn't really know even how to talk about it. It's interesting how I read that, but clearly not an easy conversation to have with people, with his players.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, put yourself in the player's position too. Your heart goes out to them. Like there's probably a lot of uncertainty for them right now. Although when Jeff Choate was doing this press conference, word had it that Leon Costello was meeting with the players and their families to tell them, what the plan is going forward, that they were going to enact a national surge, that, they want to keep the core of the coaching staff together. That would be something going forward that they will emphasize. So all this is happening at the same time. It's just mind-boggling, honestly.
That's true. So, all right. So we've talked a little bit about the initial reactions. We've talked a bit about the why for Jeff Choate. I mean, let's talk a little bit more about the why before we get into this legacy, because clearly there's stuff in this press conference that we didn't play here, but Jeff Choate mentions very much that he wants to challenge himself. He wants to keep moving. He wants to be another part of a rebuilding program. I don't remember who said it to Jeff Choate. He said maybe it's his wife who said it to him. Like you're like the home builder. You get the home built, and then you move out before the landscaper comes in and even landscapes the house. Like he gets it ready and he's just gone. He's like he even admits it's kind of his MO. So here he is, another opportunity to go rebuild a national brand, a program that is in need of a rebuild with a pretty amazing staff. Like how could you not go work for some absolute veteran, big name guys like Texas you're going to go work for? So a lot of it was Jeff Choate just wanting to compare himself to the best in the business. He said something along those lines too, like just wanting to, challenge yourself in that way. So I think that was a big part of it too. I think it's a big part of the why. Jeff Choate did mention that he's gone about as far as he can go at MSU financially, but he also reiterated that's not why he's leaving. But, that certainly doesn't hurt the situation that he's going to go make $600,000, $800,000, 3 times as much money he's making at MSU. So just what did you think about, besides how hard it was and all that stuff, his reasons for leaving MSU? I mean, just what else do you think about that?
Well, he has stated that he wants to advance his career and position himself to be a head coach in a big time school, right? So this makes sense. And I think when he got passed up for Boise State and he saw that his credentials maybe negated that position for him, this makes sense. So, I mean, like you said, Ryan, like he's going to join like an all-star staff, and I think he's going to have fun down there. He's going to push himself again, and he's going to coach football. Like he said, he's not just going to be an administrator. He's excited for that. But yeah, I mean, Jeff Choate's a driven man. And if you listen to him throughout the years, the writing was on the wall always. He would never like lead on and say, I'm here for the long haul. He almost felt like he had a 5-year plan, and look where we're at 5 years into this, and he's moved on.
I have a quote highlighted here from the press conference. We don't have the audio for it, but he said, sometimes you got to take a step backwards to take another step forward. Yeah. And I think that's exactly what it boils down to. I think Jeff Choate's ultimate goal is to be a head coach at a big time G5, P5, whatever program. And this is, I think you're right. He looked at he didn't get the Boise State job. He probably took a step back, like, all right, what can I do to get this job? What didn't I have? And it becomes very clear that his glaring weakness isn't his interviewing, isn't his culture, isn't his results even on the field. It's his resume. So what do you got to do? You got to go build your resume up. And, it just turned out that he had a great opportunity that just fell in his lap, like you said. And I mean, when you start reviewing all these facts and comparing to how you felt on Friday, and the facts start coming out, and hearing Jeff Choate talk about it completely changed my tune on it. And I completely am happy for Jeff Choate, and I applaud his decision. And I would have probably done the exact same thing.
Yeah, you can't fault the man for wanting to better his life, to better his profession, or better his, his not profession, but just the work he's doing. So, yeah, happy for Jeff.
All right, well, where are we headed next? We've talked about the why.
So, yeah, we got to get into Jeff's legacy now. What did he mean to MSU? What did he mean to the fans of MSU? And what did he mean to you and me, Ryan?
Man, this is a hard question. He's
right.
So you have a sheet there full of questions. There's one that I asked you to ask specifically. I think it's a good time to talk about this. Why did MSU fans appreciate Jeff Choate so much? I think he was universally liked. When it came up that he was going to be a finalist or even a candidate for the Boise State job, I don't think you could have found a Bobcat fan on the planet who was happy about that, who was happy about Jeff Choate leaving, which is a rare thing in college football. In a fan base as passionate as Montana State, pretty much to have universal praise, like everyone likes the guy. You could find some flaws or like, all right, next step type things you can talk about, but the progress he had made in the season we just come off of, I don't think anybody was upset about it. So when you talk about that kind of stuff, it's like, what made him so endearing to Bobcat fans, it's not just going 4-0 against the Grizz. That's a huge key piece of it. It's just the fact that he was so genuine. He was so fun to listen to on press conferences. He did so much for the program. He was such a great ambassador for Montana State. He went to bat getting us facility upgrades, fundraising, or whatever he needed to do to advance this program into his rebuilding mentality. He did it. And it's so much more than wins and losses and X's and O's. Just the way he made Montana State football relevant again, not only in Montana, but nationally. So I think it's so much more than any sort of victories or Grizz type things. I mean, that's really how I feel about it. It's a lot more than that. And it's Jeff Choate and what he meant to the team and the program and to the players and the kind of program he ran and the culture he built.
Ryan, I don't think you could have said it better, man. You nailed it. You really did. His reach was so far past just beating U of M. It was an entire culture change when Jeff Choate came. He just endeared himself with his bravado, with his just caring nature, with his father figure. Man, I just love the man so much. I mean, we joked about it the other day. It's like in our other podcast, I was like, I'm 2 steps away from getting the Jeff Choate tattoo on my arm. I was
going to ask you, did you get that done or not? Because that's going to be not fun to have forever.
But I mean, it just kind of shows what he means to me. Like, I tell everybody, like, I told my mom today, I was like, Mom, we lost our coach. And my mom almost started crying. My mom does not watch football. She's like, didn't you love this coach? And I was like, yes, he was my favorite coach of any sport I've ever cheered for. And so she felt that moment, and she just knew. And like, he was, to me, Ryan, he just felt like such a fantastic leader. Like, I just wanted to I always like just envied the players. It's like, man, I just wish I could just listen to him talk more. Like, I want to be underneath his leadership. And you saw what happened just in the athletic program. Leon Costello, I mean, all the coaches, Danny Sprinkle talked about him today. And like, everybody just had just such positive things to say about Jeff Choate. Bethany Cordell would always be like, that's my coach. And I just think about Jeff Choate not only just being like a father figure, but just being a champion for all of his players of color. Jeff Choate was not afraid to talk about the things that were the racial inequalities that were coming to the surface this year. And he was very much on the forefront of that. And well, I just think MSU hit gold when they hired Jeff Choate. He's definitely set the foundation for Montana State to go forward. And wow, we were just so lucky to have him for the last 5 years.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, Jeff Choate in fact, he does have flaws. Like, we're not sitting here saying Jeff Choate is a perfect coach. He obviously, his quarterback struggles, I would say, rest pretty squarely on his shoulders. Lots of X and O's type stuff, but the results end up speaking for themselves. Like, Jeff Choate was a bigger believer in culture being what leads a program to success than any sort of X's and O's or type things like that. He was like, believe in the process, believe in the system, believe in the culture, and the wins are going to come. And it did. Like, the Bobcats were going to be more physical and tougher and just work harder than anybody else. And that's what really ultimately led to the success. I do believe Choate had a lot of unfinished business here, and he alluded to it in his brief statement between job searches, whatever you want to call it, job potentials. But he's just like, you couldn't ask for a better leader. And I've learned so much about football. I've learned so much about life, and it's crazy to say that from like a football coach, but just the way he speaks and like the life experiences he has, like, you can learn a lot just listening to Jeff Choate, and it's pretty crazy. But I mentioned the foundation thing. We do have another line here from Jeff Choate on the foundation that he believes has been laid And this is from, I don't know who this is from. I believe this was an expansion on a question that Coulter Nuanez may have asked earlier. But here is Jeff Choate talking about the foundation at MSU.
One thing I can tell you is this isn't a house of cards. There's a great foundation here at Montana State. And I know they're going to attract a high quality candidate who is going to be able to, add that little bit that can get this program over the hump and winning that championship. And so
there you go, Jeff Choate talking a little bit about the foundation he believes has been set at his time at MSU, building off what we were just talking about, the foundation we believe he left as well on our side. So, I mean, where do you want to go from here? What should we talk about now? This is the hard part, right? Like, we're just kind of like, where do we go?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a microcosm of our feelings, though, too. It's like
all over the place.
We want to hold on a little bit. It's clear that he set the foundation at Montana State. I mean, that's obvious. We're top 10, top 5 team in the FCS. And that took a long time. That took a long time to get there. When he first came in, it took 5 years, but we're in a great spot. Montana State's in a great spot right now across all levels of athletics. And Jeff Choate definitely had a major hand in that. So
what do you think was Jeff Choate's, like, what really elevated the football team from the 2015 first losing season at MSU in 15, 14 years, whatever, Rob Ash's final season? What do you think Jeff Choate really did to the program that just elevated it to completely rebuilt it and elevated it relatively quickly within 4 years, third year playoffs, fourth year nationally ranked all the way to the semifinals?
Well, being a teacher, I would have to say this all would have to come back to relationships, because when you have good classroom culture, it's always based on relationships. So relationships would be the priority. And you hear Jeff Choate talk about that. But I also think he brought accountability and a toughness that was missing from Montana State football.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, we're going to talk about culture, and we're going to play a clip here soon from Coulter Nuanez, where he asked Jeff Choate about culture. But that was a big part of it, right? Toughness, mentally toughness, physically. We're going to out physically tough anybody that we played, but also mentally. I mean, I don't want to wax too much on the Rob Ash era, but Rob Ash teams weren't really known for being very mentally tough. When the chips got kind of down, that was kind of, they might, I don't want to say give up easier than you would like, but, things just got out of hand. And I'm not going to speculate on why and all that stuff. I'm not going to get into that. But Jeff Choate, man, his teams competed to the end. They were scrappy. They fought hard and they played hard for Jeff Choate. Like, I feel like one of the biggest differences between maybe Rob Ash and Jeff Choate would be Jeff Choate players just seemed to play hard for Choate. Choate was such a player's coach, but at the same time, I think he also set the culture perfectly that he can leave now and someone else can come in, and now they're not playing for Jeff Choate anymore. They're playing for Montana State and the culture and the brand, because the culture he set, and which has also been laid out by the players now. I think this is a big theme from Jeff Choate's time here too, is that the players are now showing the younger players like what it means to be a Bobcat. Like, such a big thing to me. That's a big change. So the culture is a big part of it, and it's a good time to play a audio clip from the press conference when Coulter Nuanez asked him a little bit about culture. Here's what Jeff Choate had to say.
I think we've done a really good job of keeping the main thing. And I think culture starts with vision. Like, that's what drives the culture. You got to kind of know what you want it to look like. And the first piece of my vision here at Montana State was to take care of my people and add value to their lives. And our people are our support staff, our coaching staff. Bill, I think, can attest to this. I make a point to stop into Bill's office almost every day. And it's not because, his office is spacious and clean and neat, and I have a nice place to sit. It's because I want him to know that I value him and his role here at Montana State. And that's the type of culture that we wanted to build, was to make sure that the support staff, they're there for our student athletes, my staff, and most importantly, our student athletes knew that my number one job was to take care of them and add value to their life. And I think that's why we've been able to drive this culture, is because we've kept it about our people. And most importantly, we've always made decisions in conjunction with Leon and Waded to do what was best for our players here at Montana State.
Man, what a great snippet there. It might not be something that you'd normally associate with culture. You might just focused about the Montana State football team and the culture related there. But Jeff Choate talked about the entire culture of everyone involved with athletics at Montana State, from anywhere from Bill Lamberty, who was the SID, all the way, I mean, everybody. And that was such a, not eye-opening, but very interesting to hear his perspective on what culture means. It's taking care of everybody and no one, making sure that you add value to anybody's life that's associated and helping the athletic programs, in particular the Montana State Bobcat football team, advance upwards in their abilities. So I think it was a very interesting clip, and I really liked it.
So, Thorny, do you agree with me that this bleeds over to us fans as well? I mean, maybe this is the reason why we're having such a hard time processing that Jeff Choate is leaving, because we feel like he cared about us as well.
He added value to my life, and now he's gone. That's a good question. We hadn't previously discussed that, but it is a hard pill to swallow, and it's not because you're just losing such a good coach who was winning football games. It's because you were losing a guy that just meant more to you than just mere football. And it's hard to put into words, but you're right. It's more than just that. And it has to be with the culture and him just connecting with everybody, adding value to your life in some way or another, and making sure that you feel appreciated. And so maybe that's why, maybe that's part of the reason that it just stings in the way that it does.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, man. Well, I think I'm ready to talk about Jeff's legacy.
Yep. I was hoping you would say that, because I was like, oh no, he's gonna move on to the next segment with the way he's transitioning there. But yes, let's talk about his legacy at Montana State. What is his overall record? Let's pull it up first and foremost. 28-22. That's what you have in this document. Is that correct?
Yes.
I assume that's correct. So
correct.
When you look at the pure wins and losses, it's not going to jump out of the page to you. But he took us. I think his legacy is that he rebuilt Montana State from a program that was struggling. And I'm not saying Rob Ash didn't have a role in there for a bit, but things fell off at the end for whatever reason. And maybe Jeff Choate even mentioned this in his press conference. Again, we don't have the audio for it, but he said something about the fact that it's like, it's better to go out on top than to be forced out later. Something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but basically, like, I'm not going to outstay my welcome. So I got it rolling, and I'm going to get out while it's still hot. Maybe something like Rob Ash maybe stayed too long, and that's where things went off the rails. I have no idea. This is just pure speculation, but I think that's the biggest thing that Jeff Choate, his legacy was that we brought us back to the forefront of discussion of national relevance. He owned the state. He really put an emphasis back on recruiting in Montana, which made Montana like something to be feared in Montana. I'm sorry, Montana State to be something feared in Montana again. And he beat the Grizz 4 times in a row, which is, I'm not going to gloss over it. It is a very impressive thing to do. It's going to endear you to Bobcat fans alone. And it's such a big contradiction between Rob Ash and Jeff Choate in terms of like how they treated Cat Grizz. I think, that was one of the biggest knocks on Ash is like, he just said, like, it's just another game. It's not just another game. Jeff Choate knows it's another game. And maybe he put too much emphasis on it. I don't know. But the fact that we made it all the way to number 4 ranking last year, we beat plenty of other ranked teams besides the Grizz last year, including SEMO, Albany, Austin P, all the way into the playoffs. Like, it wasn't just a Grizz thing that endeared himself to Bobcat fans. So I think his legacy is just bringing Montana State back to where it should be in its rightful place.
The only thing I would add to that is I think his legacy was also set by his demeanor and candor with everyone around him. He really set the example of what a coach should look like with the media and also with just people in general. He always seemed to have a good attitude when he was in front of the camera. I mean, I think Jeff Choate just likes being in front of the camera, let's be honest, but
I think Jeff Choate likes talking.
Yeah.
Good or bad. He's honest when he does it, but I don't think he minds talking to people.
But when you talk to members of the media and you listen to them, they really appreciate Jeff Choate. And I think he set a good example for coaches going forward. And I think that's going to be a big part of his legacy.
Yep, that's another good way to look at it too. Just some off the field stuff too. There's how he treated people, what he kind of redefined being a Bobcat means, and that, like you said, we listened to a clip today from Danny Sprinkle talking about it. It's amazing how much Jeff Choate's influence permeated to every single athletic department at MSU. Mm-hmm. I think he was just such a standard and such a guy to be looked up to and lead by example. Like it just permeated to everyone. So I think that's another legacy he left too, was just his leadership and his just showing that you can be bigger than what you're just your little department.
Yeah.
Before we move on from Jeff Choate's legacy, should we mention, I feel like we need to, this has been a very pretty positive, glowing review of Jeff Choate. What would you say Jeff Choate's legacy is in terms of like something that you wish would have been better? What could have been improved upon during Jeff Choate's legacy, and what could maybe the next coach who comes in grab on to and take to the next notch, up to the next level?
That's such a good question. I know you and I have talked extensively, specifically on this podcast, about his mismanagement or our perceived notion of mismanagement of quarterback at Montana State. And that's been a knock on his for a while. We always thought Jeff Choate was such a great defensive minded coach, and he would be the first to admit that was his focus. Like in one of the things that you won't hear, but was talked about in that press conference was, he's like, well, first time I got to Montana State, first year, I tried to be head coach, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, and linebackers coach all at the same time. He goes, and what the biggest thing I learned was I just needed to hire smart people and let them do the job. And I think he should maybe listen to his own advice right there on offense. And who's to say, we saw that basically there was a turning point in the offense when Matt Miller took over playing call duties. And I think that was a little bit of a turning point for Jeff Choate as well. And we have never seen Justin Udy call a single play in a meaningful game. We saw it in the fall brawl, but that was just a scrimmage. And now we are looking at this spring schedule. And who knows if Justin Udy is going to stick around. That's to be determined. But there is a knock if there's something he can improve upon. I thought maybe just allowing other offensive-minded people to kind of run the show. I know he wanted to be a run-first offense. I didn't have a problem with that, but it just seemed like maybe initially his claws or his mittens around the offense was just too tight. And we were starting to see a little bit like he was letting it go. But then the pandemic hit and we couldn't play ball in the fall. And I really think, honestly, if we would have saw this year, Ryan, it would have been different. I mean, I just that's my gut feeling on it. I think we probably would have saw the best version of Montana State football maybe ever this year. So, but now we won't get to see that.
I mean, Jeff Choate, this is his first time being a college football head coach, Montana State. So there was some definite learning on the job. And I think you're right. It was trending in the right direction. Obviously the two biggest knocks. And like you said, one of them is perceived. And this is just what we hear and what we kind of see ourselves. But it's hard to really make tangible in any way. But his, letting his coaches do their own thing. Like the rumor and the chatter is always that Jeff Choate likes to micromanage. He likes to, I think he believes so much in the process and stuff that he just like, I got to have it done exactly how I want it done. So I can do it myself kind of situation where he tried to do too much or maybe didn't let enough guys, shed their wings. What am I looking for? Wings and fly? What is that? What's that saying? Good God. Spread. I think he didn't let their coaches spread their wings and fly as much as he could have. But a lot of that I attribute to just the fact that he was learning how to be a head coach. So yeah, I think his biggest legacy, like on the negative side, would be quarterback really. It's hard to say. Like maybe not winning some of the games against the upper tier Big Sky conferences, maybe not winning that Big Sky Conference championship could be something you look at as legacy and say they'll not quite complete because of these kinds of things. But I've said this in the past. The Big Sky Conference championship doesn't really mean anything anymore when you have so many stupid teams in this conference. You can get a 4 seed and be third place in the Big Sky Conference standing, so it's not as important anymore. But I'd say, I guess, his biggest missing piece of his legacy, I guess how I would phrase it, would be winning those games against the other elite teams in the Big Sky besides the Grizzlies, and not ever being able to really develop a quarterback. There's all sorts of reasons that could have transpired, but the point is, at the end of the day, he never really had a solid quarterback play at Montana State in the way that MSU needed to advance further in the playoffs. So overall, though, I mean, I'm saying those just because I want to kind of talk about both ends of the legacy, but overall, the obviously the positives far, far, far exceed any negatives on his legacy.
So, I mean, that's a good springboard into maybe what's next, because if you start thinking about what's next, he's built this thing, and now you're looking for a guy to come in to take that next step, to push them maybe in the offensive way that he wasn't able to do. And so that's an exciting thought. So if Jeff Choate leaving got you in the blues, maybe take a look and think about, well, maybe we can have a guy that comes in here that gets the culture, that will sustain the culture, but has more of a dynamic way of thinking about offense. I think that's an exciting thought.
Yeah, and I think he was really coming around on that too. I think it's why he hired Justin Udy, was to get a complete outsider's take, a young up-and-comers, like fresh ideas, and to kind of get things moving for him. So I think the future was going to be bright for MSU. I think you're right that this could have been Jeff Choate's best team to date, even with some big-time guys leaving this year, graduating and all that stuff. But I think Choate was definitely trending in the right direction. But, I think really MSU is positioned very well, possibly, in Jeff Choate's word here, poised for greatness. So let's play a clip here from the press conference by, again, another question by Coulter Nuanez, who always brings it with the questions. Here we go.
And I think this program is poised for greatness. It is poised for greatness. Great leadership in athletics and on the university side, a loaded roster, a great group of young men. I'm very hopeful that they will retain our staff and keep that intact, because I think that continuity is a huge part of the success here. And it's time for those guys to roll.
So if you listen to the entire press conference, you're going to hear a theme from Jeff Choate several times about next type steps, continuity. I think it's a big thing Jeff Choate believes in. He's built the program where he wants it. He's got the culture where he wants it. But now the next piece is keeping things, keeping that continuity there, even though, obviously Jeff Choate's leaving now. But I think that's a big thing he believes in for MSU continuing the success and taking the next step forward. So, Foley, what did you think of Jeff Choate's kind of comment there on potential at MSU?
I think he's exactly right. I mean, we are at a spot right now that it might feel like you're on a precipice, but I don't think we are. I think we're in a good spot regardless of who comes in as our next coach. I would expect good things from Montana State in the next couple of years.
I agree. I think Jeff Choate left us in a great position. Looking forward, we had talked about possibly talking about the coaching search right now. I think we might actually leave that to another episode. I think it's a whole nother episode's content's worth. Like, what is MSU looking for a head coach? Where should we be looking? And it's been announced who's on the search committee right now. I mean, there's lots of information on that. We're already going a little over an hour here, so I think we'll keep it short here. But maybe instead of talking about MSU's next coach, why don't we kind of get into some fun stuff? What is your favorite Jeff Choate memory? Jeff Choate either coaching a team, like a game that Jeff Choate was the coach in, a Jeff Choate moment in a press conference or something like that. You got a favorite?
I do. I think two come to mind. His first year of coaching, we went down to Cedar City. We were playing in Southern Utah. was a hot day because at the very end we lost to Southern Utah and we were at a string of losses. I think this was right before UC Davis in 2016 when we won, and then the next week we went and beat the Grizz. But at the very end of the game, Jeff Choate in his sunburnt face was on camera, and you could tell the losing was just getting to him. But you know what? One thing I just really, really remember was he was smiling. And in Jeff Choate fashion, he talked about believing in the process, defining who you were as a Bobcat. And that, I can't remember what he said, but it gave me hope. And when you have hope after I don't remember how many games we lost in a row that at that point, but we were pretty bad that first year. It soothed me. It soothed my angst. It soothed like my questions about him. And it was just endearing. It endeared me to him even more at that moment. And my second favorite memory about Jeff Choate was his reaction to winning the Austin Peay game in 2019 when we played to go into the quarterfinals.
Dang it, that's on my list too.
Yeah, his fist pump after the game. That game in itself is one of my favorite games, and so it's always on my mind when I think about Montana State football. But his fist pump, his Derek Marks' play. I mean, the whole team just kicked ass that game. But I just remember him like when ESPN cut to them when the clock rolled zeros, and he's just giving his big old fist pump. I just love the fire of Jeff Choate, man. I just love to see him pumped up like that. So, those two memories will always stick out in my brain.
Yeah, that was definitely one that was on my radar. So I'm going to pivot to two other memories I had here. Here we go. Both of these are Grizz related, but I couldn't really think of this is actually spur of the moment because we didn't really talk about doing this beforehand. At least I didn't have anything planned. So one of the things that showed me that Jeff Choate understands what it means to be a Bobcat and to take care of business in the state is that picture with him with Ty Gregorak giving the 3 flash sign after beating the Grizz. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I would say that would be it's cool. I guess just he understands it. He gets it. He's celebrating in the moment. He's having a good time. You like a coach who knows how to have fun like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. And honestly, along the same lines of putting emphasis on the importance of Cat Grizz, and this is a theme only because I'm definitely one of those Cat fans who thinks there's way more to Bobcat football than beating the Grizz, but that needs to be a staple. Like number one, the Grizz are usually top of the conference, so you got to beat them anyway. We got to play them every year. If they're number one, we got to beat them. So, but just that first year when it wasn't going our way, we got things under control in UC Davis, and Jeff Choate actually talked about this in the press conference, how that was probably one of his favorite memories is that first conference win at UC Davis. But then going into Missoula, rallying the troops, getting a game plan together, and beating the Grizz after just the year that they had. I mean, how much did that mean to you as a Bobcat fan? How happy were you going to that offseason knowing that it wasn't a great year, but Jeff Choate, this new coach with a gutted roster, freshmen playing all over the place, ended the year on a 2-game winning streak, including beating the Grizz, something Rob Ashe could barely ever even do. Didn't that just give you hope that Jeff Choate maybe might have this thing going the right way?
Oh, not even maybe. It was like injected into my veins. It felt like we were just came off of like an undefeated season.
We were like 4-7 that year. Nothing to be proud of, right? The first conference win was UC Davis, second to last game of the season. So we ended on a 2-game conference winning streak. We lost every other conference game. So yeah, it by all metrics, it was not a very good season. But the way it ended, the optimism I had was way higher than it should have ever been for what it was. For just 2 games, 2 wins at the end of the season, I was just like, all right, Choate, what do you got next year? Let's see what else this guy can do. So that was definitely, I would say, put at the top of my Jeff Choate moments because it showed me that he cares and that he's going to get this thing headed in the right direction. even though it wasn't obvious to maybe a lot of people or many people at the time. I just felt like, all right, here we go. And one thing I want to do here, we're talking about Jeff Choate memories. We both kind of gave good memories there. We didn't get a lot of feedback on this one. We got a story here on the Bobcat Nation, a private message from Joe Bobcat. He has a good Jeff Choate story. I'll just probably just pretty much read this word for word because I'm not going to try and retell the story or anything like that. But Joe Bobcat messaged me saying he's well into his 60s, so I should have known better and acted my age. But after Coach Choate's second win over the Grizz, the first time in Bozeman, I saw him walking back to the field house. I turned to my son and said, "Hold my beer." The most Montana phrase ever, right? Hold my beer. And ran towards the coach, bear hugged him, and actually lifted him off the ground. We ended up talking and laughing and, said our goodbyes. The following summer, I was at a Bobcat function when Choate was touring the state. I approached him and introduced myself. After we had talked for a few minutes, I told him I wanted to apologize for giving him that bear hug last fall. His eyes popped wide, and he said, with surprise, "That was you?" We laughed, and he said no apology needed, and how one of the best parts of how everyone's jaw at our tailgate dropped. One of the best parts was that how everyone's jaw at the tailgate dropped. Flash forward about a year or more at another Bobcat function. I stepped up and I said hi to Choate, and he turned to an assistant coach beside him at the time, and he said, "You got to watch this one. If the mood strikes him, he'll bear hug you and lift you off the ground." So he just said, "Thanks for the work you did here and great memories, Coach Choate." So pretty funny. I can't imagine when I'm 60, I'm gonna be able to bear hug a guy like Jeff Choate's size and lift him off the ground. So kudos to you for having the stamina to do that. But a pretty funny story. Jeff Choate remembered it. Couldn't quite picture who bear hugged him, but pretty funny story. Good. Thank you, Joe Bobcat, for the story there. I think it's a good Jeff Choate story.
Oh, awesome story. And what a way to end this podcast with just a smile on my face. Come full circle.
Man, I mean, at this point, I just want to say how much Jeff Choate meant to me, the program. I want to say thank you to Jeff Choate. I wish you, if you, for whatever reason, are listening to this podcast, I want to wish you the best luck at Texas. I hope it works out well for you. I hope you get what you're looking for. I hope you get that next rebuild that you crave. And just good luck, Jeff Choate, and thank you for all the memories.
I don't know if I can say what I really want to say, but I'll just say this. I love Coach Choate, and I'm going to miss him.
What would Jeff Choate's last message to Bobcat fans be? Well, John Miller of KBZK asked him just that at the press conference. I'll play that for you now.
Coach, what's one last thing you want to say to Bobcat fans?
That's a good question, John. I'd say it's been a hell of a ride. This place has embraced our family, and it's been awesome. And no matter where I go, what I do, I will always be able to say, I never lost to Montana.